Welcome back to Speak Out with Christine Jurgen. I am your host. Today we have on my friend, social media friend, turned real life friend, Megan Wells. I guess we still haven't met in person technically, but we've talked online and now we've talked here on the podcast. And I absolutely adore her, love following her on social media. And I wanted to have her on because she had an experience that happened that was really negative as it pertains to children and sharing their photos and images on social media. We've had another episode previously where we've had a detective on who has talked about crimes against children, internet crimes, those kinds of things. And this was like a real person who had a real experience that was something that I wanted to highlight because it really is like informed consent with using social media, especially using social media as a parent. But we don't talk about that the entire time. We do get into home birth and being crunchy and living in Alabama and all sorts of other things, being pro-life and why, there's a lot of people right now talking about the pro-life movement because it has been in the media based on the election cycle. So we talk about that a little bit too. And I think you guys are absolutely going to love her. And I hope that you guys follow her and kind of take everything that she says to heart, especially as it relates to what happened with her son. But without further ado, here we go. Meg, thank you so much for jumping on the show today. I'm really excited. We followed each other for a little while. And so this is kind of a fun, first in-person, virtual talk, but we're both in Alabama. So we have to do something in person soon.
True. Yeah, I got so excited when I saw that you moved here, and you've been saying the same thing I've been saying, it's super underrated, so don't tell anyone about it. Let's just keep it that way.
People make fun of Alabama so much. And I'm down here, I'm like, these are the nicest people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And all that matters down here is Jesus, football, and sweet tea.
Yeah. And some fried chicken.
Yeah. I love it. And it's beautiful. Really, it's a state where you have a little bit of everything. You've got the beach down south, which I'm closer to the beaches.
Okay. Good to know.
You have beautiful farmland, and then you have small, it's not like Colorado mountains where I'm from, or where I used to live, but you have small mountains up north. You have the best of everything. And
yeah, you do. And you have land and you have no one bothering you. And you just know, my husband Avery said, when we first moved here, he was getting gas, and he was like, I just felt like I was friends with everyone at the gas pump. We all get along. We all have the same values. We all have the same goals in life.
Right. Everybody called you sweetheart.
Yeah, exactly.
I love it so much. So I wanted to have you on. I've been wanting to have you on for a while, actually. But obviously everybody we have on, we kind of take a different angle a little bit. And you had a story that I found super, super eye-catching, especially since I recently did an episode with a person who used to be a detective who looked into child sex crimes and all sorts of things along those lines from sharing your children online. But you had a situation that was pretty scary. You share people. Actually, let's back up a little bit. Tell everybody who you are because you do share a lot of your life online. So for anybody who might not know, tell everybody who Megan Wells is.
I'm Megan Wells. I'm a wife and mom, but I'm also on Instagram. I have a little bit of a platform there. At Megs__Wells. But I also have a podcast that I co-host with a girlfriend of mine. And we've led a trip to France with those girls as listeners. And that podcast is kind of took off when we kind of just spur of the moment during COVID gave a shot. Yeah. It's doing really well. So that's out there. A lot of my life is out there on that. A lot of my life is out there on Instagram. I'm also a wedding photographer. And so there's just all these different facets of my life. And I had the thought the other day, I was like, I met someone at this one conference, and then I realized she was following our Instagram, our podcast Instagram. And I was just about to post a reel on the podcast Instagram about sex. And I was like, oh man, she's going to know everything. It's all out there. There's no I'll be this way around these people and this way around these people. It's all out there. So yeah, it comes with pros and cons. We have 3 kids. And so I, like any mom does, I would post my kids all the time because they're my favorite part of my life.
Yeah, you're proud.
But my husband Avery and I would always talk about whether or not to keep them on Instagram, whether to share their faces or not. We always kind of just teetered on that fence and always talked about it. But then, do you want me to just jump right in?
Yeah, you can't. Well,
Okay.
I want to backtrack a little bit there
Okay.
because I want to ask, like, do you find it when people are like, "Hey, what's your Instagram?" Like maybe they don't know what you do yet. Are you kind of like, "Oh,
Yeah.
here we go"?
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of times when I first meet people, especially here in Alabama, because everyone's just sweet and it's like a small town, I'm just like, I'm not going to say what I do for a little
Right.
bit. Like, I'm going to make sure we're like good friends
Yeah.
and then they can go. Not that I'm any different on social media. I just feel like it comes with stigmas. And I don't want to be judged more on my social media than I am in person by this
Sure.
person I just met. Um, so yeah, I definitely hold
And
back a little
if
bit.
you talk about like really serious topics, sometimes if
Yeah.
it can be kind of controversial or
Polarizing.
polarizing to certain
Yeah.
people, and you're just like, don't know where you stand.
I know. I know.
Or I'll have somebody introduce me to somebody like, yeah, she does a lot on Instagram. I'm like, oh yeah,
No, don't
like
do
they're like,
that.
let's not talk about that. Tell me about
Yeah, yeah,
yourself.
yeah.
Okay, so yeah, let's talk about what happened because it was something that was really scary and made me think a lot about what I share online as well.
Yeah.
So dive into that.
Yeah, so back in January, I got a message from someone saying, "Hey, I found your son on an adoption rehoming page." And at first I was like, "Okay, this kind of seems like a scammer." And
Right.
so I was like, "Okay, could you send me a screenshot of what you're talking about so I could like look into it further?" And sure enough, she sent a screenshot and I was like, "Okay, now this looks like actual Facebook and it doesn't look like a scam."
Yeah.
So I went into, how moms and women in general, I feel like we can do like FBI research better than the FBI can if we want to.
Totally.
And so I went on that whole rabbit hole and was like, where's this Facebook page? How do I get entry into it? Who is this person that posted this photo? And sure enough, I found it all. Our son was 6 months or so, and I had posted a photo of just him, rookie mistake number one, posted a photo of him by himself, and he was in like a Santa hat in a onesie. And it was like not an inappropriate photo or anything, praise Jesus, I would never. But it still was just a photo of him by himself that someone had taken off of Instagram and put on this Facebook page and said, little Johnny, or whatever his name was, they made up some name for my son, is ready to be adopted or ready to be like rehomed or whatever. And I was like, excuse me? And then all of the comments underneath the photo were like, mine, love, so cute, would love to have him. Can I take him? And I was just like, what? Like, that was a very queasy feeling in my stomach when I was first reading it because I was like, he's not for sale. And
Yeah.
he's not on the market. Like, he's not, that's my child. And he's in this, which, first of all, if you're going to a Facebook page to adopt a child, you're probably getting scammed to begin with. So, like, those are definitely,
Or
I don't know
probably have poor intentions, I would think.
Right,
That's
right, exactly.
not a
Yeah,
place that you typically go to adopt a child.
right. And so I'm like, I don't know if this person that posted is just getting money from people or like what they're doing with this, but it's bizarre and creepy no matter what, no matter how you spin it. And so when we saw that, both of us were just like, okay, we have two options. We either stop sharing our kids' faces on Instagram and we like keep going on with the platform that we have and all that stuff, or we go private and we continue, like, we clear out all the thousands and thousands of people that we actually don't know in real life,
Yeah.
and keep posting our kids. And we decided to take them back and not post any more of their faces. I've left up the ones, all the years that I did post their faces because I was just like, well, they're already out there, and there's a lot of like memories and moments in those captions and those posts in general that I was just like, they're already out there, they're already up, I'm just gonna leave them. Also, I feel like when kids are kids and babies, they end up looking a lot different as they age, and so
Yeah.
I was like, I feel okay and comfortable leaving those there. But it's been hard because I'm like, I feel like I kind of had an identity crisis in
Right.
some weird way
Were
where I
you
was like,
able to like report the post and like get it taken down or
no, mm-mm. So nothing. I tried messaging, I tried commenting underneath and was like, hey, this is my kid, he's not for sale. Nothing.
That's
Nothing
horrifying.
happened. Yeah, it was very, very weird. Very slap in the face. Like, okay, people are, all those stories you hear, you say it'll never happen to you, or like, okay, how often does that really happen? And it's like, you don't do something until it happens to you, which I regret, but yeah.
Do you wish like that you had just never shared them to begin with, or
I don't know, it's hard because I get messages, and part of the reason why it was so hard initially was because my husband and I will both get messages often saying like, you changed my mind about wanting to have kids. Like, I never wanted to have kids, and now I've seen your family and how you guys interact and how much like they love their dad or whatever, and it made me rethink that decision, and I want to have kids now. Or like, you're really changing how I view big families, or you're really changing how I view early marriage and kids right off the bat, or young marriage and kids early in marriage. And so it's hard because I see all of that and I'm like, dang. And I know too, like some of the stuff I was sharing, especially about our eldest daughter, like was funny, and it would get the most, I don't want to say the most traction because it's not for likes and views, but it's like it related the most to
Yeah.
my community. And so it was sad to like have to remove that aspect of who I am and not share that anymore. But I also feel like I'm, not constantly trying to take photos or videos of them all the time anymore. So that's freeing.
Yeah, yeah, totally. I've been there, done that. So you just don't share their faces anymore, right?
No, yeah, we still share them, just not their faces. And it is kind of fun to get creative about it because I'm a stickler. I'm like, I will not to, shame anyone that does this, but I was like, I'm a photographer at heart. I'm a creator. I will not be posting white hearts on their faces. Like, I will find a way
Right.
around it.
Right.
But yeah, just the backs of their little heads.
Yeah, it's wild. I remember there was a time I used to share my kids a lot more online, and I mostly used to do like just mom stuff. I didn't
Yeah,
talk about anything
right.
controversial at all. And there was somebody who
Back in the
went
day.
back, yeah, and I mean everybody talks controversial now. It feels like we
True.
can't not have those
True.
conversations. It's so in your face. But somebody went back. You know how like occasionally you'll get somebody who's like looking through all your stuff and they're like, and
Yes.
they're kind of like they keep
Yeah.
going. They went back years and years, and there were pictures of my kids like at the beach in swimsuits, or like, and those
Oh
were the
gosh, yeah.
only pictures they liked. No pictures of my kids fully
That
clothed,
is
only swimsuits,
wild.
only like a baby in a diaper, which I don't even know why I ever even freaking posted that. I feel so
Right.
stupid. But I worked with a diaper brand, and like whatever.
Yeah.
Huggies on the TV has like kids in diapers, and it's not that big
Right.
of a deal.
When our brains just aren't there. We just don't
Right.
think like, oh, what's the worst someone would do with this?
Totally.
You
So
know?
they went back and those were the only pictures they liked. And I was like, I am so creeped out. It also looked
Yeah.
creepy, but I deleted all of those pictures immediately because,
Yeah.
and then you like have this instant regret of like,
Right.
somebody screenshot these. What did they do with them? Like
Hmm.
obviously my children did not consent to this. I consented
Right.
for them. It's just a really weird day and age that we're in
Yeah.
of like people documenting everything about their life.
Yeah.
I think somebody, I don't remember who it was who I follow, but it was somebody who was kind of prominent. I think it was, do you know who Courtney Kalla is? She's a chiropractor.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Dr. Courtney, I think she
Yeah.
posted that she was at the grocery store and somebody came up to her daughter and like said hi by name to
Yes.
her daughter. And I'm like,
Yes.
mm,
That happened to us at church. And that was one
weird.
of the things that that happened right before this whole incident with our son on the Facebook page. And we were both kind of like, very weird. They recognized us because they recognized her first. They were
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, there's Carrie. Oh my gosh, Megan Avery must be here. And I was like, that's weird.
Yeah,
That's weird.
it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So what, like, do you encourage other people not to share their kids now? Or how do you,
Um, I don't know. I feel like I kind of push back on all things when it comes to like black and white things, unless it's like life or death. Because I think everyone's into cancel culture and everything's black and white to everyone, and I just think there's so much more nuance than gets talked about. But I definitely think if you are going to post their faces, then you need to be strategic about it. Like, don't be posting photos of just them. I
yeah,
think it should be a no-brainer that we don't post, bathing suit pictures, diaper pictures, pictures of them in the bath. Like, just that should be like a no-brainer. Um, and I think if you are going to post pictures with them, it's pictures where you are in it with them.
yeah,
And it's not just standalone pictures of your kid. It's not And just things like I've seen the whole first day of school thing go around where it's like, don't post the first day of school picture where your kid's holding this thing and it says their school name or it shows their school name on the uniform or whatever.
Yeah,
Like,
logo.
just don't do that.
Yeah.
So I think if you do it, you just have to be strategic. I
Right.
obviously, I understand how hard it is to not want to remove your kids' faces, especially if you're not like a content creator.
Yeah.
Because it's like, it's like how our parents used Facebook, you know? Like that's what they're using it for. So I get it. And they're just keeping up with other friends and everything and kind of using it like a scrapbook. So,
Yeah. But even there, I told my mom, I was like, Mom, how long has it been since you've talked to like half of your Facebook friends? Like
yeah.
people that you went to high school with,
Yeah.
however many decades ago. Mom, if you're listening, sorry, but it has been decades. But really, like, do you talk to those people anymore? Like, do you know
Yeah.
them anymore? And the detective that I had on, I hope people go back and listen to that episode too. She says, like, the majority of the time this stuff happens, it's like family or friends. It's not complete strangers. It's not the guy who pulls up in the van who's like, hey, kid, get in. I've got candy.
I
It's
know.
people that you know that you're like, oh my gosh, I would have had no idea. And
Yeah.
that's what freaks me out is like, people say, well, oh, my page is private. I'm like, but, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
you still run the risk. And then even on top of
Totally.
that, the people who work at Facebook or Instagram or all these things, they
Yeah.
have access to your photos too, and you don't know what they're doing. And so like there's just this like really layered aspect that you have to think about. And I don't say any of this to scare anybody, but rather like for informed consent,
Inform.
you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
If you don't know that there's like all of these layers or, that these things are happening out there, like you definitely need to know that because I mean, it's unsafe in a lot of ways, especially if there's like landmarks around and people can figure
Right.
out where you live. But then also, you just never know what people are going to do. And do kids really want their entire life documented on the internet by the time they're an adult?
Yeah. Yeah. See, that's the other thing I don't know about. And it's hard too because I have like certain kids of ours want to be in the camera and
Yeah.
certain ones don't. And so it's hard to just be like, no, you can't. You can't do
Right.
what mommy's doing. Like you
Right,
can't do
right.
that right now. And so yeah, weighing that is difficult too because you're like, well, if they enjoy it and they want to be in the camera, like I was always front and center in the video cameras for like home videos and stuff.
Yeah.
On the fireplace, like stand, like jamming out to a song or whatnot. And so I get it, but it's just creepier. And it's a scarier world, and now it's public. Even if you think you're private, yeah, it can still get out. Which
Yeah.
is so sad because I remember like when Snapchat was a thing, it's like that's out there forever now, and people can just screenshot it and use it. And it's sad to think that I have to think about Instagram in the same way.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I agree. I don't like Snapchat, but you're
Right.
telling me Instagram too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Facebook, all of it. I mean, it's honestly, even having pictures on your phone, like you can go like really deep if you want to, who even has
Yeah.
access to that?
Right.
But realistically, it's so much to think about as a parent. I feel like it's my parents didn't really have to think about this. Your
Right.
parents didn't have to think about this, but we have to think about it as parents now
Mm-hmm.
and like how we're going to navigate this and then how we're going to teach them if they ever are on social media, like how to
Yeah.
use it and how to be safe. And,
Yeah.
we have to know about this not only for ourselves, but also for our children's sake, for when they grow up to be able to
True.
teach them.
But you know what I think is at least a bit hopeful is that
With
because
the silver lining. I'm like,
well, yeah, just a doom and gloom entirely. Is that because we have very, I don't know, I feel like we have pretty excellent, like an idea of what Instagram is, how it works, the good and the bad, the ugly. We can share that with our kids, whereas for us, it was just like, here you go.
Yeah.
It's just like jump off a cliff and figure
Right.
it out. And so I hope and I think that there will be a little bit more respect for what we have to say about Instagram instead of just like, get off your phone, get off your phone. It's like, no,
Yeah.
here's how it works. Here's how I know. Here's what happened to mom when she was, 25 or whatever.
Yeah.
And then also just like by pure like example, like I had Avery adjust my screen limit for Instagram again today. I was like, can you bump it down another hour? I have too much time. Like I know I have too much time on it right now. And I thought, oh my gosh, 14-year-old Megan would have been appalled to know that she was asking for less screen time.
Yeah, that's awesome, though.
So I was like, but that's hopefully going to stay the course. So then when our kids are older and we're limiting their screen time, it's not just like, "Oh, but mom and dad get it all the time." It's like, heck no, dude.
Yeah.
Mine's limited too.
Totally. Well, I mean, who knows? By then, there's going to be some new app, and
True.
Instagram's not going to be cool anymore. It's going to be like the MySpace.
I
And they're gonna be like, Instagram is so lame. So, does
Yeah.
your husband then have access? Like, does he control your screen time then? Like, is it on his phone so
Yeah.
that you don't have
Well,
get tempted?
we found a way on the iPhone where he can put in the screen time and it has a password blockage. So if I ever want to adjust the screen time, I have to put in the password. I don't know the password. He knows the password. And so, when my Instagram runs out of time, it says, time limit run out. And if I click like more time, I have to put in a password.
You have to
I don't
approve
have the
it?
password. Yeah.
That's
And so
smart.
then you shamefully walk across the room to your husband and say, "Hey, can I have the password for more time?"
Right. No, that's really smart. I used to have a screen time limit like that on my son's phone where well,
Yeah.
actually, he still has it on his phone where he has to approve it. But I've
Mm-hmm.
never thought about having it for myself and having my husband regulate it. That's
Yeah.
probably a really good idea. And he's
Yeah.
probably going to listen to this and pitch
Jump
that
on
to
that
me.
opportunity.
No kidding.
I'm sorry.
No, you're totally fine. I mean, honestly, it's tough because like when you work in this world and you kind of have to stay on top of like what's happening, especially like what's
Totally.
happening in the news with the election and
Yeah.
being in the pro-life world, and there's things that are going on in the news right now about different women and just like being in the know on top of that and addressing it and
Yeah.
working part-time for a pro-life company, it's tough. I feel like
Yeah.
you kind of
Yeah.
always have to be in the know when it comes to that stuff. So earlier when we were texting a little bit today, there was a family that you told me about, another like
Yeah.
crazy freak situation with social media. Dive into that one for me because I don't know a ton about that one, but
Oh
it sounds
man.
really scary.
It's so scary. So there's this page that I followed literally a couple of months before this came out, and I was like shook when it came out.
So it's like a family of like 6 or 7, right? They
Yeah.
have like 6 kids or
Yeah,
7
so
kids.
her name's Brittany Lott, and JD is her husband. They have 8 children.
Okay.
They, refashioned a bus into an RV, and they just travel around with their family of 8. They homeschool, they quote unquote home birth, but it's in an RV. So
Right.
there's a whole Reddit page obsessed, which first of all, I relate to this entirely, but there's a whole Reddit page obsessed with following her every post, story, whatnot. And I mean, just commenting on it on Reddit, like just word vomiting on how horrible of a mom she is, how dangerous this is, how her kids are screwed for life because they're homeschooled in an RV, and just all kinds of things, online trolls, trolling.
They hate homeschool families.
Right. And families of 8 and families that, travel the
And
world.
family.
Yeah, and family and women. And so they ended up getting a phone call from the Department of Children and Families in Florida saying, like, we need to follow up and verify that your children are safe. If we cannot complete this, we'll have to see an order to take into custody, which is an enforceable nationwide. So please work with us so that we do not have to do that. Thank you. They got that one day with no context about like what was going on.
Out of the blue.
Yeah, just out of the blue, hey, we need to make sure your children are safe, and if not, we will essentially do a nationwide manhunt for you to make sure your children are fine and possibly take your kids from you.
But like the stuff they post is like very wholesome. Just
Very wholesome. I mean, like,
just
like,
traveling the country.
yeah, super chill, super wholesome. I mean, when I saw she home birthed her baby in an RV, I was like, more power to you. Like,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
just like cool. And I also just like, as I'm reading this article, I'm racking my brain and I'm like, they've never posted anything wild or like crazy or anything, and I'm starting to resonate and put myself in her shoes, and I'm like, I've never been more confident in our decision to remove our children's faces, because what happened was the Reddit group decided to weaponize Child Protective Services essentially, and they claimed that their youngest child, the one that was born in the RV, had severe sunburn and was lethargic and had jaundice. Just based off of the stories and posts that they saw, those were claims that they were making to CPS, and then had this family like called upon. And so this family is like scrambling, and they're having her parents fly out to hopefully pick up the kids in case the kids get taken from them, which is scary thought to even think about anyways.
Yeah.
And then they're also trying to like get into a hospital to have the kids, check to make sure they're all good. They're all totally good. And so they get to a hospital, and a police car, pulls up behind them and like escorts them all into the building, and then has all the kids go through like a physical check and a well check and everything. And turns out, shocker, everyone's totally fine. But now the kids live with this like nightmare that they're going to be taken from their family
Yeah. I
for the
can't
rest of their
even
life. Like that's
imagine.
what they just are like, at any given moment we could be taken from our parents.
So the cops were just like, everything's fine, move along
Everything's
with your
fine,
life.
we're good. Yeah. And so now Brittany and JD are like taking to media sources, to whatever, to try and get this, like, this is a problem and they need to be held accountable for
Yeah.
what they caused our family. And I'm like, absolutely. But it's like, how do you do that? Because most of the time you don't even know who's behind these Reddit pages, because it's a bunch
Right.
of anonymous groups and, people and whatnot. But
I mean, can
it's
you
just,
like hold law enforcement accountable? Because I mean, you think if they do their actual job, they would
you
just
would
talk
think,
to the parents, or like just look and see that Reddit is a complete hellhole, and like
right,
look at the
cesspool.
Instagram and say this is completely unfounded
Right.
claims that these people are making.
Well, and you also wonder, like, don't you have to get like a phone number and the name of someone and like a
Right.
relationship to this family and why they're making these claims? Like, how is that even possible? But I don't know. Maybe you don't. I don't know. So that's, yeah.
So do they?
Especially because, well, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, especially because this exact same Reddit page that's like taking them down, essentially, is the same Reddit page we've popped up on multiple times. So I was just like, nope, nail in the coffin. Kids' faces are never going back up on Instagram. We're good. We're
Yeah.
done
Do
here.
they continue to show their kids' faces, or
think
did they
so.
just they do?
I think so. I haven't gone and looked since reading this article. I saw this article like a week ago.
Yeah, that is so wild. I cannot even imagine. I mean, just like the threat of losing your child over something that is totally irrelevant, one, but like being a good parent
Yeah.
and, homeschooling or letting your kids see the world and traveling and
Right.
being completely a wholesome family. Like, that's terrifying. It also reminds me of like, all the medical kidnapping stuff that goes on, or
Yeah.
people who choose to make certain medical decisions. It's very frowned upon, and if you don't do as the government says, then you can run the risk of having something happen.
Right.
You mentioned home birth. You're pretty crunchy, right? And
Pretty
you've had some
crunchy.
experience. You've had some
Here we go.
experiences. So share a little bit about that, because like I have 3 kids. I would love another one. I don't know that my husband is quite there.
Okay.
And we're not Catholic, so I know like Catholic views things a little different. You're Catholic. He thinks that we're done.
Yeah.
I would love to talk him into another one, and if we did, I would love to have home birth.
Yeah.
But I'm also completely terrified
Oh my
of a home
God.
birth. So tell me your
No.
experiences.
Okay, well, so we weren't crunchy to start off with. I thought that people who home birthed were crazy. I thought people who didn't vaccinate their kids were wacky and just uneducated. And I grew up homeschooled. I grew up in a, Christian household, Catholic household. And so I wasn't some like blue-haired liberal that had these thoughts. Like I was, in the vicinity of these people and just like, no, they're crazy. They don't know as much as we do, I guess.
Yeah.
And then we had a baby during COVID in a hospital, and that changed everything. That made us question things, the way we were treated during the pregnancy and during the birth itself. We're military as well, so we had military insurance, and we started to wonder if we were being asked to come in for a weekly ultrasound because they knew they could just charge it to TRICARE and not bat an eye.
Yeah.
Just things that we just didn't feel like we could trust anyone. We felt like people were kind of lying. We were first-time parents, and it was COVID. So we made some decisions in the hospital that kind of had people rolling eyes. And then from that point onward, we hired a doula, and I think that was kind of what started it all.
Yeah.
But then from that point onward, we just realized, like, okay, didn't love the hospital birth. Maybe we'll do a birth center next time because it seems a little nicer or a little more natural. Let's try that. And then we moved to Alabama, And turns out there's no birth centers here.
Yeah.
We're like we love it here, but we're like super behind the times here when it comes to like medical
100%.
stuff.
Yes, I
Yeah.
say that all the time since moving here. It drives me crazy.
Yeah. I'm like, if there's one thing California has going for it, it's raw milk that's legal and medical opportunities out there and like home birth stuff and everything.
Yeah.
So there were no birth centers. And so my husband was like, well, I guess that just means hospital for our second. And I was like, no, I'm not going back into a hospital.
Yeah.
And so then it started the conversation about like, well, I don't really want to do a home birth. And I was like, well, I don't want to go to the hospital. So what are we going
Right.
to do? And then, you start going on down the trail of trying to find a midwife, and it's really hard to do here because there's not very many here. And then around 28 weeks, I had been sharing about, my experience in the like the OBGYN place here, and just I'm waiting for 2.5 hours, and then they see me for 5 minutes and they like check my blood pressure and ask me if everything's good. I pee in a cup and they say we're good and I go. Like, it's just so impersonal. So
Yeah.
it takes forever. It's so unprofessional. There's no other profession where you could be 2.5 hours late and not, I don't know, not be held accountable for it.
Right.
And so I was just kind of fed up with it and sharing about it on social media. And I had someone message me and say, hey, I followed you since before you got married. We've been following this whole situation with trying to find a midwife. Have you found anyone? I was like, nope, I haven't. I've kind of just accepted that it's probably going to be in the hospital. And she was like, well, I need to get you in touch with my grandma. She's been doing this for like 30 to 40 years. She was an EMT prior, totally word of mouth. She doesn't have a website or anything. And I was like, what? Where have you been? What do you
Like,
mean?
this is like the beauty of social media.
It
where,
is.
like there's pros
Absolutely.
and cons, and like this is a total deal.
Absolutely. And then her grandma shows up on my doorstep at like 28 weeks. And I'm like, you are a literal gift from God, because I thought there was no way, no how. And I have worked with her since for both the second baby and third baby. Second baby ended up being breech. And so very, very grateful that her grandma was my midwife and not any other midwife, because breech babies are quote unquote legal to be born naturally here. It's a state by state case, but most states have the same laws, I guess.
What they say, you have to have a C-section or
You have
something?
to have a C-section. It is unsafe to have a breech baby. There's 3 different kinds of breech, so there are some that are definitely dangerous and risky, and I probably would not recommend you do a natural birth. But when it's frank breech, butt first, that's the same kind of, circumference on your cervix as a head would be, so what's the problem?
Yeah.
The problem is that they're not trained to do breech birth, so it freaks them out, and they can make more money on a C-section. And here I go, I'm going to start going down the crunchy rabbit hole.
No, I'm here for it.
and
I'm
that's
totally crunchy.
why-
I'm terrified
Yeah.
of the pain.
Oh, no. Okay, so yeah, we ended up birthing a breech baby at home. It ended up being a free birth, as in our midwife didn't make it there on time. It was just my husband and I, and it was unreal. It was so cool. Like,
Oh,
we
I
just
bet.
sat there and we're like, it's just us and this new baby. And I mean, praise God, everything's healthy, because something can always go wrong. But I choose to make decisions out of like trust and informed decisions, and not out of fear. And so we felt very confident in our decision, and it was the coolest, most intimate experience of our marriage. It changed everything for us, and then we will never go back.
Yeah.
And I think when it comes to the pain stuff, I think there's so much of it that has to do with like your mental like state and your ability to like, I don't know. One of the things I teach women that I will mentor in regards to birth is like during pregnancy, whenever you have an ache and pain, or like, I don't know, you stub your toe or something, practice breathing through it, and like reminding yourself, literally saying out loud if you have to, like, I'm safe, I'm okay, this pain is not emergent, it doesn't mean like something's wrong, I just, hurt myself, or I have lightning crotch, or like sciatica, or whatever.
Fire.
Or if you like need to really, really work on your mental like toughness, grab a cube of ice, stick it in your hand, hold it in your hand, and just try to focus on relaxing your body while holding really cold ice in your hand. Because if you're able to do that, then you're able to do it in labor when you all of a sudden have a contraction come up and you're like, oh my gosh, this is so hard. What's going on? And it's like, no, you're safe. You're good. Not all pain is emergent. Like, not all pain is bad pain. And then I also truly do think being at home where you're safe, comfortable, where you feel protected, really lets your body relax. Like subconsciously, your body knows that it's okay here.
Yeah.
And that helps with the pain a ton too. I also think some people are probably listening to this and they've done home births and they're like, you can't escape the pain. And it's like, maybe that's true, honestly.
I heard that there's other people who say that you can have pain-free births where,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, I have heard that. I have not had that yet.
there's some like social media accounts that like coach through that and say that they've had no
I follow
pain.
them and I
Yeah.
love that for them.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I don't know how that works. I've had an epidural with my kids. This was way before I was crunchy. With my last one, I did try to go no epidural.
Yeah.
But I don't even remember what happened. But I mean, I ended up being in so much pain and so exhausted that I was like, but also they're hospital births. And,
Right.
you know, you're laying in a position that you probably aren't supposed to be
Yeah.
in when you're giving birth and all of those things that you start to learn.
Yeah,
when
you
get
can't really
more
go in a
crunchy.
tub. Yeah.
Yeah. So what else are you crunchy on? Like, it's just everything? You're like full
I mean,
all the way.
my sister will be like on her way to our house and she'll say, I have a headache. Do you have anything other than garlic for me?
Wait, does
Yes.
garlic work for headache?
Yep. I don't know. I think she just throws that out there because that seems like the crunchiest, thing I could possibly do is offer her garlic for her headache.
Yeah.
I mean, we're pretty crunchy on most things. The thing is, we'll try to be holistic or like homeopathic with all of our things first.
Yeah.
And if that doesn't work, then we, pursue other options. Or if it's something like our son had a minor surgery intervention. Surgery seems a bit dramatic for what happened, but we're not really sharing the details of it just because it'll be a lifelong thing for him. But that was like, obviously I can't apply garlic to this situation.
Yeah.
So like, this is when the medical community is a gift and a blessing and necessary.
Right.
I just think we jump the gun too much. And so we don't vaccinate our kids. That's been said over and over and over again. And now we're having a problem, getting into our local Catholic school, which is another thing that we're working at fixing. But we're not fixing it by vaccinating our children because that's not the answer.
Right.
And then we home birth, we do all the things related to that where it's like, delayed cord clamping and
Right.
breastfeeding super important.
Which are all great, phenomenal things. I mean, there's a time and a place for the medical system, and
Absolutely.
if you break a bone, you're probably going to go get it set.
I hope.
And you know what I mean? But
Right.
if you're sick, then there's probably something else you could do by supporting your immune system. I've had strep and
I hate strep.
yeah, I ate garlic, did echinacea, did elderberry, and I was fine within a few days. Honey, things like that. And people thought I was crazy. Even people who were crunchy were like, strep is something I don't mess with. You should take antibiotics. And I was like, why? Garlic is an antibiotic.
Right.
Why would I not do this? And oil of oregano, like all of the things. I took all of those, and my husband like shut me in a room for like 2 days, and everything was fine. Obviously, if things got worse, then I would have gone to the hospital or gone to get antibiotic, medical antibiotics, medicine. But I feel like God gave us an immune system, and if we support it properly and we're doing things that we're supposed to be doing and feeding it and nourishing it, and then we're probably not going to have a lot of these problems.
Right. I also just think both and. Like, they can both exist. I don't know why there has to be such a... I mean, I'm mainly speaking to the choir because I know you and I are like, yeah, of course you can do, homeopathic stuff and have the medical community in your corner.
Yeah.
Normally it's the other side that's like, how dare you take garlic while having strep throat? And it's like, it's impacting me. Why does it matter to you?
Totally.
But yeah, I think both can exist. And I, like you said, I think God gave us an immune system. And I think he also was he's very smart. He knows what he's doing when he created the garden and he created all the things in it and all the fruits and the vegetables and the antioxidants and the antibiotics and all the things. It's not like it's wild to me that it's crazy to think that nutrition or food first is like kooky.
I know.
Like,
Well, it's of a documentary that said doctors, and this was not the goal of the podcast necessarily, but it is something I'm passionate about. The doctors were talking. It was multiple doctors being interviewed, and they all said they got either like 1 day or no days of nutrition training at all.
Yeah.
In medical school, like none, and that is maddening that these are the people that you go to, and half the time they're obese or they're unhealthy
Yes.
themselves, or hacking up a lung or breathing,
Don't even start.
all out of sorts, and then they're telling you what to do or here's some pill to take. But
Uh-huh.
it sounds like we have work to do in Alabama on the
Yes.
birthing side, and just
And
I feel like all of it. The what's happening with being able to go to schools if you choose
Yes.
medical freedom for your kid.
Well, you can go to Christian and public schools.
Yeah. So, well, the Catholic schools here are the same.
And we must be in the same archdiocese then. And it seems like that is much more of a nationwide thing than I thought too. It's not
Yeah.
just an Alabama problem.
Yeah.
But it's an embarrassing problem as a Catholic to sit here and tell you that I can't go to my Catholic school and, church that we tithe to, but I could go to the Christian school down the road.
Yeah.
No problem.
Yeah. I know if they mandate the COVID vaccine, there's no chance in heck I would get it. Our son goes to a Catholic school.
Yeah.
And I homeschool my daughters, but there's no way.
Yeah.
And he, had different things before I became super crunchy, and I won't go into like his whole medical history, but, so you talk a lot about your faith on social media as well. That's something that's very near and dear to you. And on your podcast, on all of your posts and stuff like that, you're Catholic. Were you born and raised Catholic?
Born and raised Catholic. Yep.
And so tell me, obviously the majority of Catholics are pro-life. Why are you pro-life? Is it your faith, or is it science, or something else?
Well, I think it's both. I think faith-wise, we're morally obligated to protect the innocent. We're morally obligated to view the conception of life like as God did and as he designed it in the womb. But I also think the beautiful thing about science, and this is why I wish science would practice nutrition or would know all these things, is because when they mesh together, it's so good. I think science backs up exactly what God did and what God designed in the womb. And so growing up, we were just, if you say Catholic, most Catholics are pro-life, all Catholics are required to be pro-life, whether or not they know that. But they're also required to go to confession once a year, and I don't know if they're doing that either. So, but we were pro-life growing up, and my dad would have us, we would always go to the March for Life in DC. And I still remember my first March for Life. I was like 6 or 7.
Frostbite.
What?
I said probably getting frostbite because it's always
it's always so cold. But I remember finding a giant stick in our backyard and getting a giant piece of paper and drawing little, babies in swaddles, as a 6-year-old does, on a paper, and saying I love babies, and duct taping the heck out of it to this stick and walking down the streets in DC with it.
Yeah.
I still remember that. And even when my dad was in the military too. And so even when we moved to Germany, they did a March for Life over there with the Catholic group. And I remember doing that, and it was snowing, and it was right off of the base, and I'm sure Germans were driving by thinking what's going on. But we just did it at the same time the March for Life was. And then I've just always, as the years have gone on, we've always tried to go, or I've always tried to be a part of it. I went during high school with our Catholic high school, and it was a lot of fun. And I just feel like every time you go, there's nothing but pure life and joy. It vibrates among the people that are just walking and that are there to support life. And it's the most, on this earth, I've never found a more obvious comparison in person to truth and goodness and evil. Because the people that are there walking for life are all so nice. They're all so happy. They're joyous. They're singing. They're praying. They're just so kind. You feel so safe and oh, is this a glimpse of heaven?
Beautiful.
And then along the flanks of the marchers are the people that are yelling at you, spitting at you, telling you you're all kinds of vile names. And it's just so stark, the difference between the two camps. Mm-hmm. And I'm it could not be more obvious which one is truth and which one is the necessary battle to be fought. So yeah, I think it's both faith and science. I think they work beautifully together in that way.
You kind of touched on this. Can Catholics be pro-choice?
No.
Why?
Why? Because the church, first of all, the church says so. So if you're Catholic, one of the biggest things that separates you from other non-denominational Christians, Baptists, Methodists, whatever, is that we have the authority, the church. We have the tradition, we have the catechism, we have all of this authority passed down through St. Peter. And the church as a whole has declared that life begins at conception and it is to be upheld and protected. And so if you are Catholic, you cannot be pro-choice. Because to be pro-choice in today's day and age isn't just, to let people choose what they think is best for them. To be pro-choice is to be pro-abortion. So,
Yeah.
no, you cannot be pro-abortion because abortion is murder, and that's also one of the commandments. So even if you're not, super for the Pope, which not a lot of us super faithful Catholics are for the Pope right now, then you can at least acknowledge the 10 Commandments and the murder, and that would fall into this category.
Yeah. So what the heck is going on with Catholics for Choice?
I don't know. Do I need to call them after this and say, what the heck is going on with you?
I mean, there's a total movement,
Yeah.
being in the pro-life movement. There's this whole.
I feel like that's the same thing as the
Like a Joe Biden
Catholic
Catholic.
Democrat Party.
Yeah.
Because there's Catholics for Democrats or Democrat Catholics or whatever it is. I don't know. I know there's a group out there like that too. And I'm just again, how? Because this is the biggest issue. If this issue is not solved, none of the other issues matter.
Totally.
And so if you are on the Democrat Party, one of the biggest issues that divides the two is this issue. So
Right.
maybe they're buddy-buddy with the Catholics pro-choice group. I don't know. They're probably funded by the other. I don't know.
Well, it's wild now because right now I feel like this is legitimately what an entire presidential campaign is being run on is abortion. I mean, I never thought I knew that obviously politicians either support it or don't support it, but I did not know that you could virtually run an entire campaign on abortion alone. And that's what's happening. And you have people like Joe Biden who say that they're Catholic, or other people who say that they're Catholic, who obviously
Embarrassing. This whole podcast is
but it's something that I think is really important that we need to be talking about, especially for people who are in the faith. And I have I'm not Catholic, but I have such respect for those who are, because I've said this before and I kind of get in trouble with people who are Protestant.
Okay.
And they'll tell me, I'll say, without the Catholics, we would not have hardly anything for a pro-life movement. And I hate saying that, but the Catholics are the ones who rally. They're the ones who help get signatures if necessary. They're the ones who are going out. They're the ones who are supporting women. We obviously have evangelicals who are doing the same as well.
Right.
But when I go to these things like the March for Life or to another pro-life event or rally, mostly I see Catholics showing up, and it's beautiful and I love it. And I'm so grateful. But then I see the people like Catholics for Choice and I'm like,
That's a small, let's just ignore them. That's a really small sect.
Totally. They're in name only. Okay. So usually I've end every episode with one question, and I've actually forgotten to do it the last couple episodes. It's just the name of the show is Speak Out. If you could encourage people to speak out on their convictions and only tell them one thing, what would you say?
If people are already talking about you, or if they're going to talk about you, at least give them something to talk about.
Ooh.
I heard that this past weekend at a conference, and I was like, all right, perfect. If I ever consider holding back on anything, I'll remember that I need to give the people that are already talking about me something new to talk about.
Let's give them something. I can't sing, so
Keep
going.
going.
That part out. Megan, thank you so much for joining. It has been such a pleasure, and I am going to commit to connecting with you so that we can meet up in Alabama, whether that's by you or whether I coax you to come down here closer to the beach.
Either one,
make it happen. And then probably we should be stalking our local legislators so we can start making some change in Alabama.
Sounds good. Let's tag team.
All right. Thanks for joining.
Bye.